Welcome, this is Why Is That? The podcast series that often begins with why questions rooted in the method of first principles thinking. This approach offers you diverse perspectives on various life issues. To truly embrace a vibrant spirit, let's dive into this episode. Our people, my child. High measures sorrow, far nurtures great ambition. No matter how you soothe him, a father still wishes to live on stones, not complaining of their ruggedness. To live in valleys, not complaining of their poverty. To live like rivers and streams. Ascending falls, descending rapids. Fearing no hardship. Our people, rustic in flesh and skin. Few among them are small, my child. Our people carve stone to elevate their homeland, while the homeland creates its customs, my child. Though rough in flesh and skin, on the journey, they are never insignificant. Hear me, child. There are extraordinary things that can only be found in the Vietnamese people. Throughout 3 decades of the 20th century, a nation initially underestimated, with a small population, limited land, still poor and backward, bravely and steadfastly resisted 2 powerful invading enemies and achieved glorious victory. This was something humanity at that time could not have imagined. Children of red blood and yellow skin, with ardent love for their homeland and compassion for their compatriots in their hearts. Though rustic in flesh and skin, each carried the immense stature of the Dong A spirit, of a nation united in patriotism with an indomitable will, a power that could not be subdued. This stature and bravery were forged from the spirit of the mountains and rivers of the southern land are the abode of the southern emperor. Its destiny is eternally written in the heavenly book. This spirit led us to declare, we would rather sacrifice everything than lose our country, rather than become slaves. That is the grand stature that struck fear into countless enemies and earned the admiration of friends. Let's go back in history more than a century. On June 5, 1911, a particularly important milestone, a young patriot, then just 21 years old, adopting the name Van Ba, decided to leave Saigon. He was determined to depart with a grand ambition, faced with a country lost and homes shattered, witnessing the brutal exploitation by colonialists and their feudal lackeys and the suffering of the laboring people. That young man, Van Ba, dreamt of his country by night and pondered the image of powerful nations by day. He soon formed the aspiration to find a path to national liberation and resolved to leave to save the country with a burning determination. To win freedom for my compatriots, independence for my homeland. That is all I want. That is all I understand. In those days, some worried and asked An Ba, the ship is vast, the ocean wide. When the ship sways amidst big waves and storms, what will a scholarly-looking man like you do to survive? An Ba, speaking with resolve, held up his 2 hands and said, "Here's my money," referring to his hands. "I will work. I will do anything to live and to travel. I want to go abroad to see France and other countries. After observing how they do things, I will return to help our compatriots." No matter the storms, they could not shake the spirit of that slender, scholarly-looking young man. On a French ship, the journey to save the nation began. From early morning until late at night, An Ba was always busy, constantly moving between the hot kitchen and the chilly storage room, carrying heavy loads on the swaying ship, up and down the narrow stairs from the hold to the galley. The sailors and cooks began to admire him, not only because he completed the extremely arduous work, but also because they discovered that this young man was intelligent and studious. Despite being exhausted after a long day's work, An Ba refused to sleep, staying up late, or even longer to read and write. The journey through 3 oceans, 4 continents, Asia, Europe, Africa, America, and nearly 30 countries, hundreds of cities large and small, exposed An Ba to many peoples and cultures. An Ba found the path to national salvation for the Vietnamese people, the path of the proletarian revolution. And then, 30 years later, the young man Van Ba, Nguyen Tat Than, Nguyen Ai Quoc, Ho Chi Minh, returned to directly lead the revolutionary struggle. Those 30 years were a long journey, fulfilling the mission of rediscovering the image of the nation, reclaiming the stance of the Vietnamese people, finding the golden hue of 1,000 years past and the red of the future, restoring the heroic historical and cultural traditions to serve as a foundation for a brilliant future for Vietnam, while simultaneously asserting the nation's self-determination to redraw the fresh S-shaped outline on the map of humanity. That is the stature of our people. During the anti-American Resistance War from 1950–1975, generation after generation of youth volunteers set off for the front lines to fight foreign invaders and their reactionary lackeys, with the spirit of splitting the Truong Son mountain range to save the country, with hearts brimming with enthusiasm for the future. There were young men and women of small stature who nevertheless performed countless miracles, contributing to the day of complete victory for our nation. Among them, we must mention People's Armed Forces hero Ngo Thi Tuyen, born in 1946 in Nam Ngan Village, Than Hoa City. She entered history as a legend with the feat of carrying 2 ammunition boxes, each weighing more than twice her own body weight. On the morning of April 4, 1965, the U.S. deployed dozens of planes, relentlessly dropping bombs and ammunition onto Ham Rong. Once again, fearless of danger, Tuyen resolutely joined her comrades in carrying rice to the soldiers on the ship and at nearby battlefields on shore. She had stayed up all night on the 3rd, making her weary. Although the squad leader had told her to rest, just then, an ammunition truck arrived. She and everyone else rushed to carry ammunition when they unexpectedly encountered 2 ammunition boxes stuck together. Everyone tried to pry them apart with shovels, but couldn't. At that moment, the 37 artillery shells on the ship were almost depleted. If the soldiers stopped firing for just 1 minute, Ham Rong Bridge could be destroyed. The situation was extremely urgent. The young woman, Ngo Thi Tuyen, then resolutely asked her comrades to lift both ammunition boxes onto her shoulders, and she ran with both across the deep trench under a hail of bombs to resupply. Remarkably, at this time, she was only 19 years old, weighing a mere 42 kg. Tuyen herself could not believe that she could carry 2 ammunition boxes weighing 100 kg combined. Only later, when her comrades recounted the story, did she realize that the image of a 19-year-old girl braving bombs and bullets to carry ammunition boxes more than twice her body weight on her shoulders had entered the hearts of millions of Vietnamese people. She became a symbol of the indomitable fighting spirit of the Ham Rong army and people. That is the stature of our people. It is no coincidence that Dien Bien Phu has become a name, a noun in the Encyclopedia of Human Military History, and is always listed among the battles that shook the world. For ages, northern and western invaders had always disdained the small stature of the Vietnamese people, repeatedly coming with arrogant might, intending to conquer our entire land. For thousands, hundreds, or even just decades, the enemy was always likened to giants compared to our small people. Yet, who could have imagined that these small people could achieve such great miracles? Among them, we must mention the soldiers of the anti-aircraft artillery unit, epitomized by hero and martyr to Vinh Dien, who was then a squad leader of Battalion 394. Not only did the soldiers grapple with high mountains and deep ravines, but they also had to contend with the harsh weather of Dien Bien. On some days, heavy rain made the roads slick. Just one slip and the cannon could plunge into the abyss. The canvas shoes issued became muddy after a few days. The ropes for pulling the cannon were now tattered. The soldiers had to walk barefoot, stepping on tree roots and sharp stones, their feet bleeding. Despite this, everyone eagerly awaited the day of the attack, forgetting all fatigue. On February 1, 1954, during a mission to transport the cannon, French forces suddenly fired artillery from Muang Than, wounding many comrades. Comrade to Vinh Dien quickly rushed forward, firmly grabbing the cannon's trail, which was larger than a plow handle and weighed hundreds of kilograms, replacing the injured gun crew. As the cannon moved halfway down the slope, an enemy artillery barrage then struck, severing one of the 2 ropes pulling the cannon. The 2.4-ton cannon spun uncontrollably, threatening to plunge into the deep abyss. Firmly resolved to protect the cannon, squad leader to Vinh Dien shouted, but the cannon roared downwards. He then yelled loudly, "Death before abandoning the cannon?" With the responsibility of a squad leader, to Vinh Dien and his comrades wrestled with the cannon. His feet pushed hard against the mountain face, his hands gripped tightly, trying with all his might to push the cannon's trail to prevent it from rolling into the abyss. However, the cannon sped down the slope even faster, its trail violently throwing 2 soldiers clinging to its side into the ravine. In that perilous moment, Comrade Dean let go of the steering mechanism, kicked hard with both feet, and his entire body sprang forward like a rubber projectile, throwing himself in front of the cannon wheel. The cannon lurched forward, then pinned him beneath it, coming to a complete halt. Everyone rushed to wedge the wheels, tie strong tree roots, and pull the cannon back to free him. In his final moments, he still asked his comrades, "Is the cannon okay?" And then he sacrificed his life. In the silent night, the officers and soldiers of Battalion 394 stood in solemn remembrance before the grave of their heroic comrade. Not a single incense stick burned, only the rustling forest wind and drops of rain and dew, like tears of the night, falling onto the mound of a hero bearing the stature of our people. In the Dien Bien Phu campaign, Vietnamese logistics achieved a miracle beyond the French Expeditionary Force's imagination, successfully ensuring the victory of the Army and armed forces. One of the key means that contributed to this proud achievement was the cargo bicycle. Even the name, cargo bicycle, sounds primitive at first. What could Vietnamese people possibly do with those rusty iron frames? Yet, that special weapon contributed significantly to the victory of the campaign. Never before had logistics been able to ensure such a massive volume of materials. 21,000 tons, of which rice accounted for 15,000 tons, weapons and fuel 3,000 tons, nearly 300 tons of salt, 600 tons of meat, 600 tons of other foodstuffs, and nearly 200 tons of other materials. For the first time, we ensured logistics for a large force participating in the campaign, over 87,000 people, including regular troops, youth volunteers, and civilian laborers serving the campaign. Tens of thousands of cargo bicycles from free zones, newly liberated areas in the Northwest, and even behind enemy lines, enthusiastically traversed forests and streams to serve the front lines, patiently traveling through the night, through fog, in all climatic conditions, over every road towards the front. Hundreds of tons of bombs were dropped on the communication lines and supply routes of the Vietnamese People's Army, but they could never sever those routes. What defeated the enemy were those cargo bicycles, carrying parcels weighing 200 to 300 kilograms, operated by people who were never truly full and slept on plastic sheets laid directly on the ground. These cargo bicycle convoys, though primitive, were persistent, demonstrating the stature of the cargo bicycle corps, the king of transport, iron horses, logistical miracle, and many other names of praise. This was an unprecedented miracle in the history of warfare, not only in Vietnam, but also in world history, a vivid testament to the unwavering spirit and determination of a resilient and heroic nation that would never surrender to invading enemies. The enemy had to fear the stature of our people. Tall Americans, armed with modern weapons, swept through, burning, destroying, arresting, and killing our compatriots, including countless innocent children who, at that age, should have been playing and learning. In the memories of children born and raised in the tunnel areas, there were years of American bombs raining down on their roofs, years of guns being carried away by departing family members. Some children saw death without even understanding what death was, losing a part of their body without knowing why. The formidable enemy likely never thought that these innocent children could do anything for their ancestors' resistance war. But the invaders were mistaken. Born amidst bombs and bullets, witnessing their father at the brick kiln, their mother plowing the fields, their sister on duty, and their brother hunting plains, these children also nurtured a love for their country in their hearts and the indomitable will of their nation flowing in their veins. Vo Thi Sau from Dat Du village, Ba Ria Vung Tau, was only 12 when she followed her brother to join revolutionary activities. At 14, she used a grenade to kill a French captain and wounded 20 soldiers right in Dat Du. Returning from the resistance base to Ba Ria, she undertook missions to scout enemy positions and supply the base. In 1950, she ambushed and killed Kai Tong Tong, a cruel Vietnamese traitor, with a grenade right in her hometown. That time, she was captured by the enemy. After more than 3 years of torture and imprisonment, the French occupiers sent her to Con Dao prison, where those condemned to death were held. She remained steadfast in her faith, believing in the day of her homeland's victory. The French dared not publicly execute Vo Thi Sau, fearing that revolutionary soldiers in the prison would rise up in protest. They secretly took her away to execute her. When an executioner told her to kneel, she defiantly shouted at them, I only know how to stand, not to kneel. The young girl, whom the enemy led to the firing squad, walked gracefully between two rows of soldiers, smiling serenely. She plucked a fresh flower, pinned it in her hair, and held her head high, unyielding even in the moment of sacrifice. Now, beneath the casuarina tree, she lies listening to the sea sing. That is the stature of our people, the stature of the Vietnamese nation. The world still asks why a small and backward country, having just escaped nearly 100 years of colonialism, could defeat two superpowers, France and the United States. A brilliant general of the French army also succinctly and clearly spoke about France's lesson of defeat, stating that one cannot use force to crush nationalism. No matter how many pages are written, it may never fully express the profound reverence for generations who decided to sacrifice everything for the independence and freedom of the nation. Our country united, Vietnam, from then on, escaped the plight of slavery and misery, the deafening roar of gunfire across the skies. To achieve peace, our nation had to exchange the blood and bones of countless generations. The crimson blood of martyrs made the revolutionary flag even brighter red and allowed our country to blossom with independence and bear the fruits of freedom. And today, standing beneath the sky of freedom, under the golden sun next to the Independence Palace, looking up at the vibrant red national flag, we will once again hear the echoes, see the stature of our people, witness the dragon spirit of our southern land. With hands on chests, the hearts of our children swell with national pride for the form of our country, for the defiant stance of our ancestors, eternally vast, our land and rivers.